Lee Ash, Sue Dobson, Julia Fresca, Patricia Hughes, Richard Highland, Jen Large, Richard Lee, Richard Porter, Tim Roper, Eleanor Sampson, Chris Shaw, and Ian Wright. Councillor Paul Clark is also in attendance as an observer. The officers present are David Green, the Director of Sustainable Communities, and from Planning Services, Sarah Hill-Sanders, Jadwiga Belsvich, Sally Rogers, Robin Hosegood, Kimberly Howard, Liz Harris-Best, and William Stanley. Also present are Vicky Marsh from Legal Services and Richard Macrod from Essex Highways. Thank you, Chair.
Moving on then, declarations of interest. All members are reminded that they must disclose any interest they know they have in items of business on the meeting's agenda, and that they must do so at this point on the agenda or as soon as they realise they have an interest. If the interest is a disclosable pecuniary interest, they're also obliged to notify the monitoring officer within 28 days of the meeting. Now, I have a note here from Richard Poulter. Councillor Poulter, can you tell me what items you won't be taking part in, please?
Chairman, items 6 and 7, because I was not at the last meeting.
Thank you. I also have an item that I will not take part in this time. It will be item 9, 37 Goodwin Close, as my parish council has given its opinion, although I'm not on the planning committee. Is there anyone else? Councillor Highland?
Thank you, Chair. In the same respect as Councillor Poulter, items 6 and 7, as I was not at the last meeting.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Councillor Jenny Large has a question, or is that for later?
I was just going to say that I won't take part in item 6 as I was unable to attend the site visit.
Of course, thank you. And Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same as Councillor Sosian, that although I'm not on the planning committee of Great Barrow Parish Council, I am a member of the parish council and so won't take part in that item. She's already indicated the same.
Thank you. Is that all? I think it is. Okay, I'll move on. The minutes of the last meeting, which was the 1st of September 2020. Is it your will that I agree those on your behalf?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Okay, public question time. Any member of the public may ask a question or make a statement at this point in the meeting, provided they've been invited to take part in the meeting and have submitted their question or statement in writing and in advance. Each person has 2 minutes and a maximum of 15 minutes is allotted to public questions and statements at this point, which must be about matters for which the committee is responsible. The chair may disallow a question if it's offensive, substantially the same as another question, or requires disclosure, of exempt or confidential information. If the question can't be answered at the meeting, a written response will be provided after the meeting. Where an application is returning to committee that has been deferred for a site visit, for further information or to consider detailed reasons for refusal, those who spoke under public questions at the previous meeting may not repeat their questions or statements. Those who have submitted a valid question or statement will be entitled to put it in person at the meeting, provided that they've indicated that they wish to do so. Right, I shall move on to the planning applications, and at this point I'll direct members to the fact that there is a green sheet which shows a change in the wording of a planning policy background, but nothing else. Okay, you should have already had that. We'll go on to item 6 now, which is 22 South Hanningfield Way, Runwell, Chelmsford. Item 20-00758-FUL. This application was deferred from last time for a site visit, which was carried out yesterday. Can we have the officer's report, please?
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, committee. Hope you can all see me. We have the PowerPoint from last time if members want to refresh their memories. We were all in attendance at the site visit yesterday, and we visited the application site itself, obviously, and also both neighbouring properties. Because the application is retrospective, we were all able to see and stand on, in some instances, the raised patio area at the rear of number 22. And members, I'm sure, will have their own views on the impact of that development on both neighbouring properties. We saw the fence that had already been erected on the boundary with number 24, and we were able to also visit number 20 and stand in their garden and patio. So, Chairman, really it's over to yourself, I guess, and the Planning Committee to debate the planning merits of the application.
Right, thank you. I will move straight on then to members to debate. Who would like to speak? I have nobody at the moment. That seems strange. Councillor Lee, would you like to start?
Thank you, Chair. Having attended the site visit yesterday, the concerns seem to be from the residents with regards to overlooking substantially. The relationship with number 24, with the fence in place, when I was standing on the patio in 24, I could only just see the top of Councillor Wright's head. Now, Councillor Wright is a very tall gentleman. I do not feel there is an overlooking issue from that side. And from the other side, number 20, there was overlooking there previously. There is only a 3-foot fence, so I personally don't really see an increase in overlooking with this raised patio. If anything, there is a decrease of overlooking onto the patio of number 20, where the extension has come out and pushed the patio back down the garden. You can see the patio of number 20 less. So if anything, I believe it's an improvement to the overlooking situation. So I don't have any issues with this application.
Right, thank you. Councillor Wright.
Madam Chairman, having also attended the site visit, I have only got concerns for number 20. I agree with what has just been said, that on the previous vision, perhaps there is a bit of an improvement. However, I think we must look at what is going to happen in the future. And I would propose to protect the amenities of number 20, that the proposed screen at number 22 should be at a consistent height from where it's shown on the plans, right down to the bottom of the steps that lead onto the patio. Not reducing in height as you go down the steps, but one constant height from the top. This would clearly prevent any overlooking of the neighbouring property, and I would have thought then everybody would be quite happy. So if we have that as a condition, I would be happy to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Also, obviously, having been at the site visit, I would agree with Councillor Lee. I think that the measures taken already in the plans for the privacy screen, as is proposed, would be adequate to prevent any undue overlooking into number 20 from number 22. So I would not really consider that an enlargement of the screen was necessary. I would think it's okay as it is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And I gather that the makeup of the screen has to come to officers for approval anyway. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Eleanor Sampson, Councillor Sampson.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I wanted to say is I agree with all the comments that the overlooking isn't really the issue here because of the situation that's already there with the low fence, and they're probably more bothered about the fact that it's such a, you know, quite an imposing build compared to what was there before, although that's not grounds for you know, not giving planning. But I just wonder whether this, like the idea of the screen down to the bottom of the steps, is almost going to make the whole development feel even more imposing to the neighbours, and whether they could just put up, whether they could replace that bit of the fence rather than the screen to, you know, not necessarily down the whole garden, but for that top half of it.
Right, thanks. Right, so we have two basic sides at the moment. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak? I believe there will be in a minute. Yes, please.
I don't appear to be able to get an H to talk to you.
Oh, right. Okay. Can you bring your video up then, please?
I'll bring my video, yes.
Oh, there you are, Councillor Hughes.
Down the bottom. Yes, I attended the site visit yesterday. I feel that the screening would be better further down, as Councillor Wright has said. I think one of the other alternatives is perhaps if the fence was higher. The number 20 have got, is it a 3-foot fence? If they had a 6-foot fence, the same as on the other side, there would, you know, would certainly not be the same amount to overlook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, however, that is not in our gift in any way, shape or form, is it, Sarah? No. We have some more. Sarah, could you come back on that? I don't believe that fence is anything we can handle, is it?
Chairman, it is within your gift or your right as a planning committee to include additional planning conditions if you feel that is necessary to make the development acceptable. It's not an uncommon condition to require boundary fencing, etc. It would be for you to propose where you wanted that boundary fencing to be positioned and how tall you would wish it to be. My understanding is that the existing boundary fence, the low level fence, actually belongs to number 20, I get the two muddled up. So you could potentially be in a situation where you have two fences along a boundary line, which in planning terms is perfectly acceptable. But you can, if you feel it's necessary to safeguard privacy, propose and agree to a planning condition. But I think we would need to be clear how tall and at what position we wanted that fence, because those gardens are very, very long, as you can appreciate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'm really just echoing a lot of what has pretty much already been said. I attended the site visit the same along with everybody else. I think the whilst the screen extending down the entire patio would be a good idea, I think again it could look like could make the sideway a bit of a wind tunnel, and again if how it would be constructed it would be pretty tall by the time you get to the bottom step. I do agree. I do agree that the garden is already overlooked, as Councillor Lee said right from the beginning. It is only a low fence, and it's the existing fence was sort of, you could easily see the people sitting on the patio of number 20 quite adequately. I think if there is a possibility that that the actual boundary fence could be raised, say to 1.8 metres or 6 foot above, along that section of patio where they're sitting, would perhaps be better. But as the application stands with the proposed privacy screen, in some ways I would agree with that, in that I think it would be an acceptable compromise in this respect as the application as it stands.
Sorry, can I be clear, Councillor Dobson? Are you saying you want it to go to the bottom of the steps, or are you happy with it where it is?
I'm happy with it where it is. I think if it went to the bottom of the steps, I think it would be too overbearing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Chair, I'm having trouble getting an H, I think.
Okay, hold on, Councillor Roper. I've got Councillor Frascona first, but stay with me. You're here. Councillor Frascona.
Hello, thanks, Chair. And I agree with what's been said, really. I mean, I agree that the privacy screen would seem quite overbearing in a way, but there is no other sensible solution. And clearly, the people at number 20 didn't mind being overlooked because that fence belonged to them, and they only had a 3-foot fence all the way down the garden. So it's a bit hard to argue now that they mind so much, when that has been the case, obviously, right up until now. So I agree with Councillor Lee and other councillors who've said that really it's acceptable as it is.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roper, you were there too.
Chairman, I agree with what was said by Councillors Lee and Shaw, and just recently by Frascona. I think the additional panels are totally unnecessary, and I am very happy with the proposal as it is.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? Right, in that case, I also think that the present position is probably best. So therefore, I will ask that this application be left as it is. It was deferred from last time. We've seen it. We obviously have mixed feelings about how high this screen is. I would like to put the proposal as it originally stood, with the screen going as far as it did originally, if that makes any sense at all. So I will ask that the application be approved, subject to the conditions that were on page, I believe it was page 6. Yes, page 6, as it is. So can I ask you all to decide whether you're happy with the application as it is? Brian, can you take over now, please?
Yes, Chair. I think we do need a seconder for that motion. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. In that case, Chair, I'll read out the names of the councillors who are present at the last meeting and at the site visit. They're the only ones entitled to vote on this particular application. So if you could indicate whether you're for or against the motion or wish to abstain. Beginning with Councillor Ashley. Councillor Ashley?
She sometimes has difficulty getting on.
Yes.
So, there you are.
Thank you. Councillor Dobson?
For.
Councillor Frascona?
For.
Councillor Hughes?
Sorry, against.
Councillor Lee?
For.
Councillor Roper?
For.
Councillor Sampson?
For.
Councillor Shaw?
For.
Yourself, Madam Chair?
For.
And Councillor Wright?
Abstain.
Right, thank you. Chair, the clear majority are in favour of granting the application. There's one person against, one person abstaining, and the rest are in favour of it. So your motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Right, everyone, we'll move on to item 7, which is the site at former Kids and Coffee. This is also coming back from last time. Last time the committee was minded not to agree the officer's recommendation for refusal and indicated they were minded to approve the application. In accordance with our code of good practice, the officers have suggested planning conditions and reasons, which are on pages 1 to 5 of the report. So I shall go straight to the committee members to see whether they agree with those reasons that have been set up by the officers. Who would like to start? It's gone very quiet this end. Councillor Wright, would you like to start?
Madam Chairman, having looked at the reasons, I fully support them. Thank you.
Thank you. I do need some more discussion before this is completed. Councillor Frascona? Councillor Dobson, sorry. I've got you out of order. Apologies, Richard, but I'll come back to you. Councillor Dobson.
That's okay. I was just really going to echo, I think the conditions that have been listed are comprehensive as usual, and I'm more than happy with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Further adding to that, I agree with the conditions entirely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy with those conditions. So, Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, sorry, all I was going to say was to echo what I didn't get it quite quick enough, but I agree with those conditions, which was what we asked for at the last meeting so that we could approve the application, and I'm perfectly happy.
Right, thank you. In that case, I will suggest that the application be granted for these houses. Can I have a formal vote then, please?
Can I second that, Madam Chairman?
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Forgetting my seconders tonight.
Again, I'll read out the names of those members who were present at the last meeting when this was first considered, leaving out those who weren't present. Beginning again with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Dobson.
For.
Councillor Frascona.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
For.
Councillor Large.
For.
Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor Sampson.
4.
Councillor Shaw.
4.
Yourself, Chair.
4.
And Councillor Wright.
4.
In that case, that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one, which we will have the report for. It's item 8, site at play area Woodhall Road, Chelmsford, number 19/01579/FUL. Can we have the officer's report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is Sally Rogers, Senior Planning Officer. The application site is within the urban area of Chelmsford. It is an area of open space located to the rear of houses in Woodhall Road. It is enclosed on all sides by rear garden boundaries and accessed via a narrow track to the east of number 14. The site is a T-shape and the base of the T is the site of the former church hall. This section of the site is dense vegetation, whereas the rest of the site is mown grass. The land no longer has any children's play equipment on it. The proposal is for 12 dwellings. All of the properties would be 2 stories with a terrace fronting up to Woodhill Road and then 3 further blocks of accommodation behind. The land is owned by Chelmsford City Council, and as part of the land agreement, the applicant, who is Chelmer Housing Partnership, will be providing all of the units as social rented affordable housing. The City Council will also have nomination rights to all of the dwellings. The site is allocated in the adopted local plan as a growth site in an urban area and is specifically referred to under policy 1.0. It is also an area of open space, which policy DM21 seeks to protect. The policies pull in different ways, so in weighing up the planning balance, we need to take into account a number of material planning considerations. The existing open space offering is considered to be of poor quality. The site is in a backland position, it only has one narrow access and has very poor natural surveillance because it's surrounded on all sides by rear gardens. To compensate for the loss of open space and as part of the overall planning contributions, £20,000 will be secured through a Section 106 agreement to provide improvements to nearby parks at Rutland Road and Berwick Avenue. These parks, which are shown in green on this map, are close to the application site, which you can see outlined in red. The buildings would match the 2-storey scale of houses in the local area, and their appearance has been improved during the life of the application to ensure good quality design and detailing. The layout has been designed so that the new houses would be sufficiently far enough away from the neighbouring properties so that their living environments would not be adversely affected. The local highway authority are content that the access would be safe and that sufficient parking is provided on site. Protected species surveys have been carried out by qualified ecologists. The surveys found no evidence of badgers or reptiles using the site. As a precautionary approach, we've suggested that the site is cleared under ecological supervision, and the applicants have agreed to this suggested condition. The applicant has also agreed to pay for improvement works to St Andrews Park through planning contributions to provide new habitats there. This would consist of 67 metres of new native hedgerow and 1,190 square metres of scrub belt. So looking at the planning balance, firstly, we have to recognise that the site is an allocated housing site. We know that the proposal conflicts with policy DM21, which seeks to protect open space, but we need to look at the quality of the open space offering. This is a backland site which has no natural surveillance and only has one entrance. Because of its position, it doesn't feel like a particularly safe environment, especially for unaccompanied children. On new development sites, public open space wouldn't be designed in this sort of way now. The application is also proposing social rental housing, which includes larger family homes, which we are in need of in this borough. To compensate for the loss of open space, planning contributions of £20,000 will also be secured through a Section 106 agreement for improvement works to 2 nearby play areas. Improvement works will also be secured at St Andrews Park to make sure that the development achieves a 10% net gain in biodiversity. Taking into account the existing poor quality open space and the significant benefits of the affordable housing, the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you. Now, I think gentleman called John Cricket, I think he's going to be talking on this. He seemed to have come out of the meeting. Brian, can you make sure he's back in? He's still waiting in the lobby. Ah.
I've just admitted him, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Now we have quite a few public questions and statements, which you will have already seen, but on the other hand, we need to read these out at this point. Can we have the first one, which is from Christine Marshall? I gather you're reading it out, Brian.
Yes, I am, Chair, yes. The statement reads, what a superb piece of planning, though when an application from an anonymous person was in line for approval to convert what was a 3-bedroom council house into a house of multiple occupancy for 4 to 6 persons at 19 Woodhall Road, which is more or less slap bang opposite the proposed access road for the play area. I hope the new residents of number 19 do not have a car each when they move in. Also, HMOs usually cause trouble in the form of too much alcohol, illegal drugs, and visits from the police and ambulances. With regard to the play area, I would suggest that you arrange for an immediate inspection of the water levels at the east end of the field after all the rain and storms we've had in recent weeks, as the ground is absolutely sodden now. I know the gardens at numbers 8, 10 and 12 Woodhall Road are very wet. My neighbour at number 12 had birds bathing in the water on her lawn on Saturday. Perhaps a more powerful pumping station is required. In my letter of 18th of June, I drew your attention to the mains sewer manhole halfway down my back garden. I did ask in that letter if the foul water drainage would be connected to the current system at that point, as it is south of the plot. Needless to say, I have not received an answer to this question. I still maintain that to destroy all the trees and vegetation that has grown over the years, together with all the wildlife that lives in it, is completely contrary to the Council's published green policy of Let Our City Breathe, and plans to plant a tree for every resident in Chelmsford. Woodhall Road has an enormous amount of traffic using it. Only the other day, the most enormous cement mixer lorry that I've ever seen drove past my house. I thought there was a limit on the size of vehicles that could use the road. Perhaps when someone is killed in what is supposed to be a residential road, something might be done. All this building of houses going on does during a very serious pandemic, when there is no known way of controlling it, is not a very sensible way of controlling the spread of the virus. Such things should be left until a vaccine has been found. When is Chelmsford City Council going to realise that you cannot keep building houses all over Chelmsford with no new infrastructure to support them, with the exception of one railway station in Bewley Park? While reading information on the internet, I found a paragraph that was headed Threats to the Environment. This stated that conservation is a high priority for local councils across the UK. With this in mind, if you have reason to believe that planning permission could affect the natural landscape or damage nearby trees, you may be able to raise a convincing dispute. Chelmsford is obviously not one of those local councils. And that ends that statement. Chair?
Right, thank you. Now we have Roger Gillies. I gather you're reading it out yourself.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and can't see you yet.
Right, I'll turn the camera on. Right.
Thank you.
Can you see me now?
I can indeed.
Good. Okay, I'll make a start. I'm Roger Gillis, the Director of Barefoot and Gillis Architects.
We've lost your picture again.
Oh.
It's easily done.
Okay, thank you. Right, let me start again. I'm Roger Gillis, the Director of Barefoot and Gillis Architects. We designed this scheme. The committee report refers to the increasing need for 3 and 4 bedroomed homes, which are to be available on the basis of social rent. Very few of these are released every year, and so the 2 3-bedroomed houses and the 5 4-bedroomed houses, which will be provided by this scheme, will be of particular value to the local housing stock. When designing the scheme, we received very positive input from Chelmsford City Planning Department to ensure that the new housing will fit in well with the surrounding properties. Overlooking has been avoided, and the design of the houses themselves is compatible with their neighbours. Car parking complies with all the relevant standards and will be sufficient to serve the development. And looking to future trends, we've provided 1 electric charging point for each of the houses. Essex County Highways have not objected to our proposals, and the development will therefore not have a detrimental effect on Woodhall Road itself. The site is subject to flooding. However, we commissioned engineers to produce a design which will avoid any flooding issues and also prevent any surface water discharging onto the highway. The public open space that the scheme replaces is of low quality and would be considered unsafe by today's standards. And whilst the green area provides a certain level of wildlife habitat, there are no threatened species present, and the site itself, which once accommodated a church hall, is now mainly grass. My clients will make a significant financial contribution to increasing biodiversity at the nearby St Andrews Park, and on site they're providing alternative habitats such as hedgehog highways, beetle refuges and bat boxes. Whilst the reservations of local residents are understandable, there are similar open spaces within a short walk of this site, and we are confident that this development will be an attractive place to live and will make a valuable contribution to the housing available for people on low incomes in Chelmsford. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to move on now to John Cricket. Are you there, John?
Hi, Chair. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, fine.
I'll read out my statement if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So we are Mr. and Mrs. Cricket, and we're the owners of number 30 Cumberland Crescent. In addition to the general concerns on traffic and the flooding proposed by the new development, we'd also like to share specific objections relating to ourselves and our immediate neighbours. We dispute sections 5.27 and 5.31 of the proposed for the new site on Woodhall Road. We don't agree that the level of overlooking from plot 9 onto our property is acceptable, and therefore it's not in accordance with policy DM29 of the Chelmsford local plan. The proposed plots at 7, 8 and 9 are roughly at a 16-degree angle, with those and ours of our neighbours at 32, 28 and 26. And this is not enough to mitigate being heavily overlooked from the property's rear bedroom windows. Furthermore, the suggested possible replacement fences at 1.8 metres high plus a 0.6 metre trellis would not really improve the situation. This would provide privacy for barely a third of our back garden and would leave the entirety of the back of our house still overlooked. We feel these new developments therefore are overbearing and intrusive, and the lack of privacy to our garden and property will adversely affect our quality of life. The properties on Cumberland Crescent are by design overlooked by the front, but the new development would leave our rear garden, our rear bedrooms, our kitchen and our reception room all overlooked, which would leave us with no rooms left in the house where we could receive privacy without having to block out natural light. We'd also like to point out that in the site maps on page 23, 24 and 25, they're no longer accurate as they do not show recent alterations to our property. And this now puts the nearest points between our property and the new development as marked on page 24 as about 2 metres less than the current measurement. We did make the council aware of this back in June by email. We would ask that the properties at plots 7, 8 and 9 are reconsidered and redesigned to be side-on, that is perpendicular, rather than parallel to Cumberland Crescent, to resolve the overlooking issues both for ourselves, our neighbours and for the new properties themselves.
Thank you. We will go back to the officers afterwards. Okay, so I will get the other statements read first, but please stay and listen to the various comments. The next one is David Scully, to be read out by you, Brian.
Yes, Chair. The statement from Mr. Scully reads, I reject the planning officer's description of the park as a poor quality space. It is frequented by many dog walkers and is home to much wildlife, as well as serving as a natural flood defence. In the past, it had a community centre and a park, which has been stripped bare without any consultation with the local community. We are living in changing times, and for this community to function properly, it needs space. There are 2 houses opposite the entrance to the park that are being turned into HMOs. As many as 10 residents that will be living opposite the entrance, as well as the 12 houses being built, is a recipe for trouble. This is not right or proper and will be a disaster for the rest of the local community. That ends that statement, Chair.
Thank you. Alex Scully, you're reading out your own statements. Can you join us, please?
Hiya.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Thank you. Please carry on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. The planning officer's recommendation is wrong. This committee must reject the application. The loss of our precious open space directly breaches policy DM21. The park is absolutely not surplus to requirements, as demonstrated by the response from the residents in the consultation, and this application will deprive the estate of its only open green space. The Section 106 agreement is insufficient. Improving other open space facilities elsewhere does nothing to replace the loss of this one. It is an inadequate gesture. The application also breaches policy S9 and GR1 by depriving the estate of its open space whilst increasing the demand for such facilities. This is the opposite of sustainable development. The report acknowledges that the Council's open space study found that the Patching Hall ward has an undersupply of open space. Since this report came out in 2016, this problem has only become more acute due to the recent housing development in the ward. The report inaccurately describes the park as a poor quality open space. This is categorically untrue. The reasons given for this decision are all due to council neglect. A dog bin should have been installed and the play equipment should have been replaced, but the council failed to do so. I also refute that the park is an unsafe space with no natural surveillance. The park is overlooked by the houses which back onto it, and there have been no incidents of antisocial behaviour or undesirable activity of any sort. Regardless of the issues raised in the report, I believe the park is a high-quality space. It is a green oasis in a concrete jungle. It is the only green, dog-friendly open space the estate has. It is home to dozens of different species and is a natural flood defence for the bottom of Berwick Avenue, which the original planners of the estate recognised back in the 40s. Its destruction would be a massive breach of policy DM16 Part D. This application would result in a huge net loss of biodiversity. The idea that a net gain in biodiversity is achievable through offsetting is ludicrous. Even with the suggested measures, Woodall Estate would become a far less biodiverse area. The application also breaches policy DM29 and DM26 by infilling the park, which is in the middle of the estate. Both the new and existing residents suffer from a lack of privacy, particularly the Cumberland Crescent residents, as John explained. The large increase in population density will inevitably lead to increased extra noise and could result in tension between residents. The visual amenity provided by the park will be replaced by an overbearing sense of an urban landscape. The increased strain on the already busy Woodall Road is a further detrimental point. Finally, the single positive aspect of the application is its provision of social rental houses. However, the clear and obvious breaches of DM21, S9, GR1, DM16, DM29 and DM26 mean that on balance the application must be rejected. Woodall Estate residents should not suffer due to the wider need for social housing. They have made this abundantly clear through their comments on the application and the petition. This need cannot override every other planning consideration. Development must be sustainable and political priorities should not override this principle. The Council should not approve HMOs as they have done in Woodall Road while speaking of the need for more affordable housing. The council should update Grove Site 10, calling for the preservation of the park and the building of free houses on the former Church Hall site only. This is a sustainable, reasonable choice for the site's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that was the last of the statements. So I'll go back to the officers now. Are there any points in those statements that you wish to speak to before I go to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. I'll do my best. So there was a comment about this being against the council's green policy to let the city breathe and plans to plant a tree for every resident in Chelmsford. Condition 14, you'll see, recommends a landscaping scheme to be submitted, which would have to be approved by the local planning authority. And this scheme would ensure that new trees would be planted for the new houses. And the proposal also includes a 10% net gain in biodiversity through improvement works to St Andrew's Park. There was a query about the foul drainage being connected to the main sewer. Yes, so the drainage report that was submitted as part of the application shows that the foul water will actually discharge to an on-site Anglian water foul sewer, which runs across the site access. We've also had a consultation response from Anglian Water, which advises that the site falls within the catchment of Chelmsford Water Recycling Centre, which has available capacity.
That particular point, yes. The lady herself says she has not been answered. Is it possible to send her an answer to that question anyway, please?
I can do, yep, that's fine.
It seems unfair that she hasn't heard.
Okay. I can do that, that's not a problem.
Okay.
There was a query about a house of multiple occupation opposite the site access, which is 19 Woodhall Road. So houses of multiple occupation can have up to 6 people living together. That is permitted development and does not need planning permission. We have a lawful development certificate in at the moment for 19 Woodhall Road, which is currently under consideration for 6 people living together. The County Council, the Highways Authority are aware of this, and they are content that the access to the site is safe and that there's sufficient off-street parking provided to serve the development. You'll also see that there's a condition number 16 on the report, which requires a traffic regulation order to be agreed. This would put double yellow lines opposite the site access to stop cars from parking opposite, and would mean that vehicles can then, like larger vehicles, can turn in with a free access opposite. A query was raised about overlooking, particularly at 30 Cumberland Crescent. So the back-to-back distances on all of the houses exceeds the council standard. So the standard is 25 metres back-to-back if you've got parallel facing windows. Number 30 Cumberland Crescent had a 5 metre deep single-storey rear extension, which we were made aware of and we knew about. And that distance is still 27 metres, even with the larger extension. There was also a query about the loss of play equipment. The play equipment was removed in 2017. It had come to the end of its life and it was no longer safe to use. And my colleagues in Park Services have advised me that it was removed for health and safety reasons. The Parks manager said that the 2012 equipped play strategy, which was agreed by Cabinet, said that it made more sense to upgrade the other nearby sites rather than replacing the equipment at Woodhall Road. This was because Woodhall Road only has one entrance in and out, a narrow access, and it's not well overlooked. So from a sort of health and safety and personal safety perspective, they decided it was better to upgrade the other sites. There was also comments about there being no antisocial behaviour on this site. Well, Park Services, again, I asked them and they said that over the years they have had to clear up broken glass and litter from this site, and also that when the play equipment was there, it was subject to vandalism. In terms of loss of biodiversity, we've had surveys submitted to us that were carried out by qualified ecologists, and they show that there would be no harm to any protected species, and that the scheme will achieve a 10% net gain in biodiversity by enhancement works to St Andrews Park, which I've outlined in the report. Finally, in terms of site flooding, the applicants, as you heard from Roger Gillies, are aware that the site floods, and they have submitted a sustainable urban drainage scheme to deal with surface water from the development. The site, they carried out geology assessments because the ground underneath this site is made up, so it's got brick, so it doesn't filter very well. So because of this, the surface water will drain into a attenuation tank to the east of the site, and then it will be pumped into the public surface water sewer. Both the local lead flood authority and Anglian Water have confirmed that the proposed drainage scheme would be acceptable, and you'll see that there are conditions attached. Condition 6, which requires the scheme to be signed off and certified as technically acceptable by the local lead flood authority, and also condition 17, which controls noise from that pumping station. I think that covers everything, Chair.
Right, thank you. In that case, I shall open it to the committee for comments, please. Who would like to start? No entries in the chat box at the moment. There are several entries from earlier. Ah, here we go. It takes time sometimes. Councillor Poulter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I start with the general principle that all planning applications have by law to be determined in accordance with the local plan, the adopted local plan, unless material planning considerations indicate otherwise, in which case a balance has to be determined. The balance here is as set out in the report, and I entirely agree with that. On one side of the balance is the loss of open space, and that is regrettable in all circumstances. And that is covered by policy DM21, although I think it's also covered particularly by subsection 3 of DM21, which would appear to allow this particular application in certain circumstances. That's one side of the balance. The other side of the balance is the need for affordable housing. And as we've heard from the applicant's architect, we have here a provision for 4-bedroom houses. I think the 5 4-bedroom houses. There is an absolute shortage of this type of accommodation within the city boundaries. So that is quite a big element to be put in that side of the balance. So from my point of view, I have to determine as I can which is correct. And I plump for the application as submitted because of the need for the affordable houses, and also the fact that this site is in the adopted plan approved by the inspector as an area for growth. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I think I would echo what Councillor Poulter has said. Obviously, it is a balance between the two things, but we have to obviously take into account, probably in an overriding manner, that this is in the local plan approved by the inspector as well as adopted by the council. I just have a little bit of uncomfortable feeling that all the arguments against keeping it as open space obviously emanate from the council, and the emphasis on it being poor quality is also from the council, who were responsible for the open space. So I do have some conflict, but I think on balance I will have to come down in favour of going in accordance with the local plan. But I do have some conflict there because of the quality of the open space and how it became, how it's described.
Thank you. Councillor Large.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to speak, and I was going to say similar things to the previous councillors. So there is clearly a conflict here between the need for social housing and also the desire to keep open space. And I do feel that the need for this type of housing in Chelmsford is quite desperate. And in that case, I am minded to, I think, side on the social housing side of things and to get that in place. And the loss of open space is clearly regrettable. And I also appreciate the comments from the neighbour who clearly at the moment at the end of the garden there is an open space, and that will change if these houses get built. But on looking at the plans and the distances involved, it does seem that they still have a reasonable amount of privacy, or as an acceptable amount of privacy, although I appreciate that that is a different situation to what they currently have. The other questions I had, which are about flooding, have been very, very well answered already by the officer, so I won't ask those questions. Yes, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dobson.
Hello, can you see me? Yes. Yeah, I'm really kind of echoing what most people have already said. I mean, there is the need for the affordable housing, and again, that has to be a major consideration. But obviously, this site is in the local plan. It has gone through inspection, public sort of consultation, etc., and it has been found, the plan has been found sound with that, with that site in it, and in that respect, I would support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Frascona.
Hello.
You're muted.
Ticked, but it didn't take.
That's better.
Sorry, I ticked, but it didn't take. Hi everyone. Again, I do agree with what Councillor Large and Councillor Shaw and the other councillors have said already. Although it's difficult, it's a shame to lose the open space. Really, a terrible shame. But we do need social housing. I just wondered if any consideration being given to the suggestion from Mr. Cricket that the houses should be put side on, and that he thought that would improve the privacy situation. I don't know if the officer could tell us anything about that, whether that would be possible or whether it's been looked at.
Hello.
Okay. Sally's back. Yes, please, if you can reply.
Yes, so this was the relationship between number 30 Cumberland Crescent and the plots that he mentioned, which includes plot 9. This is the distance, which I mentioned earlier, which is 27 metres. So in terms of overbearing, our standard is 25 metres. So it actually exceeds that. So there's no need, in my view, to turn the plots around. And also, it's quite a small site. So in terms of making sure that the garden areas and the parking and the relationships within the site work, I'm content that the layout is acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I very much agree with what the majority of the other councillors have already said, and just wanted to add that, even despite the conflict, I actually think it's an amazing development to get so many affordable housing units designed for that space. Rather than just kind of a necessary evil of losing the space. I actually think it, should very much be applauded, because we've got so many residents who need that sort of thing in Chelmsford. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian, Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'd just like to make one quick comment, and that is regarding the change of description of the buildings, moving them round. This committee only has the power to adjudicate on what is before them and not what they would like to see. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Now, I think we're at a point, unless there's anyone else who comes in, that we can go towards a decision on this. So my suggestion is that this application is approved subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement and for the reasons on pages 10 to 13 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I second that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on it, please?
Yes, Chair. I'll read out everybody's name in alphabetical order if they could indicate whether they're for or against that motion. So beginning again with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Dobson.
For.
Councillor Frascona.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
For.
Councillor Hyland. Is Councillor Hyland there? Okay, I'll come back to him. Councillor Large.
For.
Councillor Lee.
For.
Councillor Porter.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Sampson.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Yourself, Chair, Councillor Sozin.
For.
And Councillor Wright.
For.
Just going back to Councillor Hyland, are you?
I think we may have lost him.
Appears so. Despite that, Chair, the motion to approve the application is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
That's agreed.
Thank you, everybody, for putting your points. I'm sorry it didn't go your way, but I hope you understand that we have tried very hard to understand what you've been saying. And hopefully you will find that this development is suitable in the long run. Thank you. Now we move on to item 9, which is 37 Goodwin Close, Great Baddow. Now at this point I'm going to hand over to Councillor Wright, who will run this particular application past you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can we now have the officer's report, please? Hello.
Thank you, Chair. Planning Officer Jadwiga Basevich here, and I would like to present a planning application for extensions to 37 Goodwin Close. The proposal includes a first floor extension above the side garage and partial garage conversion,
Can I stop you a moment?
Floor rear addition, and a loft conversion with a rear facing dormer window. The application property is located within the urban area of Great Baddow. It is an end-of-terrace, two-story property with off-street parking and a northwest-facing rear garden. The slide in front of you shows the front elevation as proposed. It would only be slightly different from the existing elevation, also on the slide. The proposed development is therefore considered to be acceptable within the street scene. The proposed additions to the rear of the property are also fairly modest in scale and would fit well with the host dwelling as it is shown on the current slide. This slide illustrates the relationship with the neighboring properties to the rear. The proposed first floor extension would be located between 20 and 23 meters from the neighboring properties numbers 35 and 53. The minimum recommended back-to-back distance between two-story properties is 25 meters for properties outside the town centre location. Given that the first floor window within the first floor extension would be located less than 25 meters away from the neighboring properties number 35 and 53, this window is recommended to be fitted with obscure glazing and be non-openable below 1.7 meters from the finished floor level. This window is shaded in yellow on the slide. The new first floor room will still have a second opening in the form of a dormer window, which is shaded in blue on the slide. This opening would provide an adequate outlook and ventilation to this room. It would also be orientated away from the neighbouring properties to the rear. In conclusion, the proposed extensions are considered to satisfactorily complement the form and style of the host dwelling and would result in no harm to the appearance of the property or the visual amenities of the area. The enlarged property would maintain an acceptable relationship with all neighbouring properties, subject to the recommended condition. Also, sufficient off-street parking and private garden area would remain to the enlarged property. Approval is recommended. Thank you.
Hello?
Andrew?
Yeah.
Can you tell Janetta?
Brian, can you please rerun the piece on 37 Goodwin Close, because it didn't work properly.
Oh, didn't it? Okay. I'll try it again.
I was trying to tell you, but
Oh, sorry. That's been
I couldn't manage to tell you. Okay.
Yep.
Brian and Chair, Councillor Sosin, if there's a technical problem, I can run through it manually if that helps.
Yeah, yes, please. I think you should.
Thank you, Chair. Planning Officer Jadwiga Basevich here, and I would like to present a planning application for extensions to 37 Goodwin Close. The proposal includes a first floor extension above the side garage and partial garage conversion, a first floor extension above the existing ground floor rear addition, and a loft conversion with a rear facing dormer window. The application property is located within the urban area of Great Badder. It is an end-of-terrace, two-story property with off-street parking and a northwest-facing rear garden. The slide in front of you shows the front elevation as proposed. It would only be slightly different from the existing elevation, also on the slide. The proposed development is therefore considered to be acceptable within the street scene. The proposed additions to the rear of the property are also fairly modest.
Could we call a halt to this until we can get the and start again?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, Chair. I've been playing the presentation. It works okay on my screen, but obviously it isn't getting through to everybody. So perhaps we'll have to abandon that one and just ask the officers just to run through the main points of it.
Chair, would you like me to run through the slides manually and talk about them as best I can?
If you will, thank you.
Okay, bear with me, Ian.
Can
you see the title page?
Right, I've got the title page here now with the proposals.
Okay.
So if you could run through.
And has it now switched to the site location plan?
Yes.
It has. Okay. Thank you. I can't see it, I'm afraid. I can only. So this is the application site. We're in Great Baddow, so principle of development is acceptable. And as you can see there, it's an end terraced property with access to the side into a shared part with numbers 35 and numbers 33. Proposal includes a number of elements. One of the elements is to put a half a storey on top of the existing garage structure. You can see there from the front elevation how the height of the garage would alter. We are content that the enlarged garage structure would be an acceptable addition within the street scene. Going round to the back and the side of the property, we've got comparisons between the existing and the proposed. So on the rear elevation, you can see that a dormer window is proposed in the existing roof slope. That on the existing single-storey rear extension, a half a storey would be added onto the top of that. And you can see there a half a storey on top of the garage to the side. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the side elevations on the property. We have looked carefully at the relationship with existing neighbours. There's already an existing quite tight back-to-back relationship with numbers 53 and number 35. We've highlighted there in yellow the half-storey extension on top of the rear extension, and to safeguard the privacy of the neighbours to the rear, we feel that the rear-facing window in that part of the extension should be obscure glazed. The bedroom window also has a side-facing window that would face over the applicant's parking area and the communal driveway area. So we're content that the side window would be acceptable. And looking at that rear extension again, we've highlighted in yellow the window that we feel should be obscure glazed, just because of the close proximity to those houses there at the back. And that side dormer window in blue won't affect those neighbours because it overlooks that parking area. So whilst we have had regard to the concerns of the neighbours, we're content that the relationships would be acceptable. There's sufficient parking retained at the property, 3 parking spaces, and our recommendation, Chairman, is for approval. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. We now will move on to the public contribution. And I remind you there, anyone who speaks personally, you have 2 minutes. But Brian, could you please take us through the people who wish to speak?
Chair, in fact, we've got no public statements or questions for this particular item, so we can move straight on to the committee's consideration of it.
Okay, thank you. Then in that case, we will move. Have we got the parish council present?
No, Chair, they haven't asked to attend.
We have no city councillors wish to speak?
No, none have indicated their wish to do so.
In that case, we'll go straight through to the members for a discussion. Who would like to open up the discussion on this application? Then I'll ask, does anybody have any concerns regarding the summary of conclusions and the recommendations that have been made? Could someone just confirm that they are in fact receiving my message?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Yes.
There don't seem to be any problems with this.
Yes, we can hear you. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody, any member, wish to make comment on this application?
Ian, Councillor Large is there.
Yeah.
Just looking at the H's.
I see we have a number of H's that have come up. So Councillor Dobson.
No, I haven't raised my hand. Yeah, Chair, sorry.
Chair, Councillor Large, Councillor Porter and Councillor Frascona have indicated a wish to speak.
Yes, well, perhaps we'll start off then with Frascona, please. Councillor Frascona.
Hello. I just wanted to ask if there were any problems with this application, because it doesn't seem to be. Has it come to us just because of the person who has made the application?
Councillor Frascona, if I can just jump in there, the application is before us because the applicant is a council employee, and in line with council's constitution, because we have had an objection and we have to bring it to planning committee.
I understand. So the nature of the objection was was because it was too crowded.
There was concern about overlooking, which we feel we have dealt with by a planning condition for that rear-facing window that brings the windows at that higher level closer to the neighbours. I think there was a concern about parking, but the site retains 3 off-street parking spaces.
Yeah.
So we're content as long as it's fine.
I think you've answered that well, but perfectly adequately, and I can't see a reason to object to it, really.
Right, shall we move on then to Councillor Poulter, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I feel that the issues have been adequately addressed and I have no problems with the application. I approve the recommendation.
Thank you. And now we have Councillor Large, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to say similar things to the previous councillors, that so the parish council objected to it being an overdevelopment of the site, but and that there being not enough parking. But yes, there seems to be sufficient parking, I would say, and I don't particularly have any objections to the site. Develop the application as it is. Thank you.
In view of the fact I have no other member indicating they wish to speak, I will then put forward the recommendation. The application be approved subject to the conditions that have been listed on the report circulated to all members. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'm happy to second, Chair.
Brian, will you then please take the vote?
Yes, Chair. Councillors Shaw and Sosin indicated that they wouldn't be participating in the consideration of this item, so excluding them, I'll read out the names of the rest of the members in alphabetical order. You can indicate whether you're for or against the proposal, beginning with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Dobson.
For.
Councillor Frascona.
For.
Councillor Hughes.
For.
Councillor Hyland, if he's back. No. Councillor Large.
For.
Councillor Lee.
For.
Should be finished.
Councillor Porter.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Sampson.
For.
And yourself, Chair, Councillor Wright.
For.
In that case, the proposal to approve the application is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Right, members, you'll see then the application is approved subject to the conditions that have been listed and circulated. I will now hand over the chairmanship back to...
Thank you very much, Ian. Sorry, that was a bit of a complicated one. But these things do happen, don't they? Item 10 is all that is left, and that is planning appeals, of which there is only one item tonight. So I'll leave you to look at that at your leisure. And I will now close the meeting and thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
Thank you very much.